behalf of the whole organization, our thanks to Rafi Devers for all he's done for our franchise, better part of the last decade, a homegrown guy who came up through the system and was a member of our 2018 championship team. And we're forever grateful for his contributions across the organization. I want to let everyone know that obviously this decision was not taken lightly, nor did it come suddenly. We obviously, over the last week or so, reached an inflection point, and as difficult as that inflection point was, as the hallmark of this organization, I guess, over the last 24 years, we acted boldly and decisively, and we came to the very difficult decision to make a deal that we think serves the best interests of the Boston Red Sox in the short term and in the long term. I'm really grateful on behalf of John and Tom and Mike Gordon and everyone in the Red Sox ownership group to Craig Breslow and his staff who worked tirelessly on this deal. And we're pleased to be here tonight to talk about it and answer any questions you have. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions for me or for Craig, who I see is on the screen with me. So we'll open it up for questions. Abby, over to you.
And with that, we can begin with questions.
Okay, Craig, I just wanted to ask, you said kind of repeatedly this year that everything you've been doing in terms of moves and everything was with this year in mind. Just wanted you to explain like how this move kind of helps the team for this season.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I understand why the initial reaction would be that it'd be tough to sit here and say when you move a player of Rafi's caliber, when you take that bat out of the lineup, how could I sit here and say that we're a better team? And I acknowledge that kind of on paper, we're not going to have the same lineup that that we did, but this isn't about the game that is played on paper. This is about the game that's played on the field, and ultimately about winning the most games that we can. And in order to do that, trying to put together the most functional and complete team that we can. And so, I think when you consider the flexibility, the ability to give some of the young players some run, the opportunity to maybe repackage some of the resources and fill some voids in the roster as early as approaching this year's deadline, and being really intentional about the environment that we create for these young players to thrive in, then I do think that there is a real chance that at the end of the season we're looking back and we've won more games than we otherwise would have.
Right, the Giants ended up assuming all of Rafi's remaining contractual obligations. How big a factor was that in pairing with them? And was there a mandate to unload as much, if not all, of his contract to facilitate a trade?
Yeah, no, working backwards, there was no mandate. The mandate is to assemble the best team that we possibly could. And in order to do that, we needed to create a more functional roster, and give certain guys more playing time, be able to rotate through the DH spot, potentially match up there. And also, this is a roster that certainly has some needs, and we can talk about starting pitching and bullpen help, and we think that we addressed some of those in the return that we had in this deal. But additionally, I do think that it gives us some resources, like I said, as we head toward the deadline.
Sam, you mentioned that you all reached an inflection point, and I'm curious, from your perspective, why didn't this situation with Rafi work out in just the second year of a $300 million deal?
Yeah, thanks for that, Julian. In the end, I think it's pretty clear that we couldn't find alignment with Rafi. Is the truth. We all worked at it over the last several months, going back to the off season, starting with Alex Cora and Craig and the staff, and then up to me and all the way up to John Henry. We worked at it. we had a different vision for him going forward than he had, and we couldn't get there. We couldn't find alignment, and we reached that inflection point and made the decision to make a big move.
And Craig, just this for you, is there anything looking back on the situation, dating back to spring training? Obviously, you guys got Bregman. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think about that question all of the time. This is not the outcome that we had expected, and it's forced me to reflect on the interactions that I've had, not just with Rafi, but with other players, and opportunities to communicate differently. Anytime you get to this point where, as Sam said, you reach an inflection point and you fail to reach alignment. I need to own things that I could have done better. And I don't know if this outcome would have played out any differently. I think that there's a decent chance that it wouldn't have, but I absolutely need to have the humility to think back on the interactions and figure out what I could have done better.
Question for Sam and maybe Craig, kind of following what Julian was asking, what if you could tell the fans a little bit perhaps of was it strictly the on the field, the position moves or what have you? Was it off the field? Was it leadership? What were some of the things that you were looking for from Rafi that prevented it, and were you worried that it would affect the team long term?
Well, first of all, I want to express an understanding of empathy for anytime you see a star player leave the organization, especially the Red Sox organization, it's hard on fans. And Brez and I are in the privileged position to be in a spot where from time to time we have to make really hard calls and hard decisions. As is John Henry and Tom Werner and Mike Gordon and our ownership group. That goes with the territory. These decisions are on us. And so we understand that many fans may be feeling disappointment. And so we understand that. In terms of what was missing, it just was that alignment in terms of what we felt we needed from him that would be in the absolute best interest of the ball club. That's a non-starter for us. We have to have that. We couldn't get there, and as Brez said, maybe we need to look back at things we could have handled better. But it's definitely a two-way street, and we didn't get to the alignment that we needed in the best interest of the Boston Red Sox. So we made the decision that we made, and we're also excited about what's coming back. Brez and his team worked tirelessly to upgrade our pitching in this deal, and so appreciative of that. But that was Rochi. That was the main thing.
Sam, this is Dan Shaughnessy for Sam and Craig. Would you guys characterize this as a baseball trade?
Well, I'll start, Dan. Appreciate the question. It was a baseball trade because we did what we felt was in the best interest of the Red Sox on and off the field to win championships and to continue to ferociously and relentlessly pursue a culture that we want everyone in that clubhouse to embody. And doing everything in their power, night in and night out, to help the team. So yeah, it was a baseball trade without question. Brez, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, would just echo that, and obviously the quality of the return we're going to see how that plays out over the next several years. But we're absolutely excited about bringing Jordan Hicks, a dominant late inning reliever, into our mix, and Kyle Harrison, someone we think can pitch in the front half of a rotation. We've identified some development opportunities for him that we're going to work through, and then in James Tibbs, a first rounder from last year, an athletic profile, someone that makes great swing decision, and someone we think can excel in our PD infrastructure, and Jose Bayo, an exciting young arm. But again, we've talked a lot about for some reason this team, being an example where the whole was not greater than the sum of the parts, and being great teammates and sacrificing and stepping up for each other and embodying this shared vision. We believe that those are principles that we need to be faithful to. And so, at the end of the season, I think we could look back and say we've won more games than we otherwise would have because of the way that this roster is now able to come together.
And one follow-up, if you would, was having the other team assume the entire balance of Rafael Devers' contract, was that a condition of making a deal with the team?
No.
I can answer that. No. We were trying to improve the long and short term outlooks. We were trying to provide some additional roster flexibility, and we were trying to make the best baseball trade that we could.
Sam, on Nesson last week, you said that you believed when Devers, or when you guys asked Devers to pick up a glove, he'd be ready. Did you believe that when you said it, or was that just trying to kind of make things publicly?
Yeah, I think it's probably my own fault for being eternally optimistic. And so I believed it when I said it. I was sitting in the Nesson studio watching imagery of Rafi take ground balls. So yeah, I thought we'd ultimately get to a place of complete alignment, but we couldn't. So we did what we did.
Hey, Sam, couple questions, Sam, for you and Brez. This is Steve Burton here.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, guys. Did Rafi actually request a trade? And when he found out the news, and when the team found out the news, how'd they handle that? How'd they take that?
Yeah, I can jump in. There were times during the course of conversations with Rafi's camp, where they had indicated that perhaps a fresh start would be best for both sides. We were committed to trying to work through this, and like Sam said, ultimately we weren't able to achieve that alignment. But this does represent that chance to reset on our end and for Rafi to get a fresh start, with a historic franchise. So that's kind of how that came about.
Was he shocked when he heard it?
There was definite surprise. I think the reaction from the group was surprise. But at the same time, as they started to talk amongst themselves, and even some of the quotes that have come out today, this is a group that believes in themselves, and a group that we have a ton of belief in. And I think that they are very businesslike in terms of recognizing we've got a game tonight to win in Seattle, and we've got 26 guys that are committed to doing that. I think while we're at it, important to point out that this is in no way signifying a waving of the white flag on 2025. We are as committed as we were 6 months ago to putting a winning team on the field, to competing for the division and making a deep postseason run.
Question for you. This, you said it's purely a baseball trade and money wasn't the driving factor here. Did things become so untenable that you felt you had to make this move?
I don't think that would be a fair characterization. I think, where we got to was believing that making this move made more sense for us than not making it. And if we didn't get the return that we, that we were holding out for, then we wouldn't have made it. But the only commitment that I have ever made to any player, any staff member, anyone in the office or ownership, was to do what I believed was best for the Boston Red Sox, and this was that.
But to follow that up, this is a generational talent in Rafi Devers. Right now, you guys receive 3 guys that are at the minor league level and 1 guy that's on IL. So are you understanding why fans aren't seeing that and taking it maybe as face value, and that things must have been pretty bad for this to go through, is what I'm saying.
I understand the reaction from fans, the criticism that we are taking the surprise. I do understand all of that. And I also will stand here and say that we would not have made this trade if we didn't think it was best for the organization and the vision and the beliefs and culture that we're trying to create. We have a number of young players who are in the big leagues, and we're really excited about them. And we're very, very deliberate and intentional about the environment that we want to create. And ultimately, we believe that we're positioning the organization to win a bunch of games, both in 2025 and beyond.
So
Craig.
along those lines, Craig, with the timing, a multi-parter on the timing, was the call up of Anthony to join Meyer and Campbell kind of a catalyst in the timing here? And if you can kind of talk about how the process came together, why it ended up, like whether or not you were approaching this as a broader based exploration of the market, or if you identified the Giants as a potential partner and just negotiated exclusively with them. How did you proceed from a timetable standpoint?
Sure. So I think Sam had said it best when he said, this was not a decision that was made lightly or that was made suddenly. You don't trade Rafi Devers simply because you have a player coming off the IL and you need to make a move, right? But we are mindful of balancing, what we believe to be this, kind of really exciting young core with, the opportunity to play in the big leagues. And there were a number of paths that we felt like we could explore in order to get a more kind of cohesive and more functional roster. This was one of them, and it was ultimately the path that we went down. Now, whether or not we negotiated with one team exclusively, I have seen some commentary that we didn't shop this deal, whatever that means, and I don't know that it makes a ton of sense to get into the kind of mechanics or strategy, but I do believe we had a thorough process and we had a good idea of what the market would or could look like, and this was a deal that we felt like made sense, and the reason that we executed it, as difficult as it was.
One quick follow-up on that. Within that though, a lot of people think that the trade deadline or the offseason represent times when it's easier for a number of teams to bid against each other. Why was it the case that that there were unique circumstances to right now that led to the deal being made now, and you felt like you really did need to kind of push the gas pedal, or did you just feel like this was in your market survey? Did you just think that this was going to be the best deal you were going to get?
Yeah, I think that this, I think we rightfully set a really high bar in order to execute a trade of this magnitude. And, we did have conversations with other clubs. We got a sense for, the way that they might behave, whether it was today or a few weeks from now, and felt like this, it's not that this was the best deal that we could get, because the best deal that we could get may not necessarily be good enough to trade a player like Rafi Devers. But when you consider all of the factors here, this is the one that made sense. This is the path that we went down. And so we ended up where we did.
Could you guys, for Sam and Craig, what happened in the meeting between John and Rafi in Kansas City, and what was the resolution out of that?
Sorry, you had asked what was the meeting between John and Rafi?
Yeah, I think that's what he asked. I can take a stab, Brez.
Sure.
That meeting was full of candor, openness, honesty, between both John and Rafi, and Brez has had many discussions with Rafi. I've had discussions with Rafi. AC's had discussions with Rafi that have been candid, honest, direct, and we just weren't able to get there on a shared vision for his role going forward. And it's okay. This sometimes happens in a long-term relationship, and we hopefully did the absolute best thing in the best interest of the Boston Red Sox, and in this case in Rafi Devers. And like I said, we really wish him well. But we've had lots of open discussions with our clubhouse every year since we've been here in a quarter of a century. perhaps this year more than even ever before, because there's such a commitment and a desire to get the most out of the 2025 Boston Red Sox.
Sam,
Sam, when it comes to
you mentioned Rafi's role going forward and what the organization saw it as being. Could you specify what it is, whether it's a defensive position, whether it was leadership, whether it was interacting with media, whether it was sponsorship commitments through the team? What exactly did you see him doing that he was either unwilling or unable to fulfill?
No, Bill, I think it's best to just leave it at, we just didn't have the same shared vision for what was in the best interest of the team on the field. And this was a baseball deal, as Brad's articulated.
Hi, Sam. Hi, Craig. Matt McCarthy with the Sports Hub. Sam, as you just said that this was a baseball decision, and maybe this is a better question for you, given you've been here a little bit longer than Craig, but over the course of the last 5 years, you've traded an undeniable first ballot Hall of Famer in Mookie Betts, and now a player who might be building his own Hall of Fame resume in Rafael Devers. So I guess simply put, why does the organization keep doing this? And what are the organizational factors that have created an environment where the Boston Red Sox are, I guess, repeatedly trading away Hall of Fame talent? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Understand the question. Each and every player decision is its own individual decision. And as I said at the outset, it's really, really hard when we either can't line up with our own players who become free agents, or we don't line up on extensions. Obviously, very different circumstances. But I'll put our record up against anybody else's in Major League Baseball over the last 24 years. We're incredibly proud of what we've built here. We've got more trophies and banners to show for it than any other organization in Major League Baseball, and we are so proud of that. And this clubhouse believes in itself, and we believe in them. And I think our players are going to be pretty vocal over the next couple months about the belief in themselves and what they've been put together to do. Craig Breslow, it's easy for me to talk about him. He knows what it means to be a World Series champion in Boston. His tenure here, albeit short, has been defined by bold, decisive, aggressive moves. Probably feels a lot more than 2 years in the role. But a lot of the moves that he's made have been bold and decisive and rooted in what is in the best interest of the baseball team. We're never going to shy away from big, bold decisions. We'll get a lot wrong, and hopefully we get more right than wrong. And we'll keep adding trophies to that case and raising banners here in Fenway.
And just
Craig,
a quick follow-up to that, Sam, if you wouldn't mind, I think a lot of fans would say Betts, Devers, Lester, Chris Sale, over the course of the last 10 years, are you concerned that that's becoming a part of the organization's culture? Thank you.
It's hard when you part ways or you can't find ways to extend star players. It's the hardest part of the job. And so we appreciate the incredible fan support that we get year in and year out. And as Brez said, at the end of the day, this organization is about the overall team, not one individual player. And if we're going to be hoisting a trophy later this year in October, it's going to be because the guys in that clubhouse stepped up, not one individual guy.
Craig, when it comes to the short term, what is your thought process in regard to the new payroll flexibility that you have? Are you set here? Are you thinking about bringing in additional players to address needs? What's the thought process now that there is more money available?
Yeah, so I think first with the roster in the short term, right, giving some more flexibility at the DH spot does allow us to rotate through the 3 left-handed hitting outfielders as soon as Willie's back, plus Sedon, able to stay in center field where we've seen him play elite defense. Likely opens up some additional at bats for Moss as well as soon as he's healthy. And then we look at opportunities to improve our team every single day. And if we were having this conversation a week ago, we would be talking about starting pitching. And they've been really good the last 2 turns through, and we need to make sure that that has some staying power. But starting pitching could be an opportunity for us to continue to upgrade. Also we've had our share of both bullpen injuries and inconsistency in trying to get the ball to Araldis, who's been so good late in games. So that's another potential pathway. And then we need to start thinking about what does the long-term solution look like at say first base. And Tristan's rehab is going well, but it's going to be a long road there. So yeah, I think we're absolutely going to look at the best use of those resources and could put them to use as early as the 2025 trade deadline.
And when it comes to reaching the inflection point that you described earlier, Sam, do you view this as being your responsibility as a front office? Is it more Devers' responsibility that you're unable to find, that common ground to allow for him to, pick up a glove and contribute in the way that you guys desired? Who do you feel has the most responsibility in this?
Well, it's a shared responsibility. I think you never want to be in this situation where you can't find alignment with someone you've got a long-term commitment to. But unfortunately we did. And look, I'm the CEO of this organization. So I have a huge amount of accountability, responsibility for everything that happens at Fenway Park. I know Brez feels a huge amount of accountability. But listen, there's blame to go around on all sides when you can't get to alignment on what's best for the team. We were the ones that made the decision to make the move. Obviously, that's our right as the organization, and we did that, and we'll be held accountable. And we're very confident in this group's ability to go forward and to be incredibly competitive. We've been disappointed. Let's be clear about that. We're not pleased with where we are. We all had much higher expectations for this group, but we have seen incredible life and energy the last week or so. We're excited about getting some guys back from injury, and we're really excited about the injection of youth and the team first attitude of that youth that's coming into the organization and the culture that's being built in this clubhouse.
You guys talk about the inflection point here.
If I can just jump in, just to follow up.
Sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, just to follow up on Sam's point there, just because I do think I also shoulder a significant responsibility here, and failing to reach that alignment, failing to find common ground, and I rethink each step along the way and question whether or not the approach that we had was the right one. It may not have changed the outcome, but I think not to go back and kind of be self-reflective and self-critical would be a missed opportunity to improve this the next time we're in a similar situation.
You guys have talked about sort of the inflection point you've reached and the culture you want to have. And just relative to the timing of this deal, I mean, the team had won 5 in a row, 7 of 8. So what was the impact that you were seeing of Rafael's behavior on the team? Because at this particular juncture, it didn't seem to be affecting the team's performance on the field, which was as good as it had been all season. And so was this more something that was bothersome to the front office and ownership than it was actually impacting the team at this particular point?
Yeah, I can jump in there. The timing was absolutely not great. And we don't always have the choice about when these things kind of reach the point of execution outside of we absolutely could have, walked away or said, we're not going to make this trade, but we do ultimately believe that it was best for the organization. And I don't think it's fair to say that, our performance was solely because of Rafi any more than to say, a number of these games that we've won over the first, couple months, have been because of the offensive contributions that he's made. But I do think, as we think about the identity and the culture and the environment that is created by great teams, there was something amiss here, and it was something that we needed to act decisively to course correct.
And Craig, if I could just follow up with you on that, I mean, just so we just sort of have it on the record here. I mean, was this just about first base? Had you asked him after Alex's injury about moving to third? I believe it was a few weeks ago in Atlanta. You know, you were quoted as saying you guys hadn't asked him about third. So did you ask him about moving to third after Alex went down? Was that a consideration? And did he refuse that as well?
Yeah, so I did not have the conversation with him about third base. Felt like there were better paths to exploring that. But ultimately, as Sam has pointed out, this kind of lack of alignment. I don't think that there's an individual or a single event that we would point to. I think it's more just the totality, the culmination of a bunch of these things where we felt like a fresh start for both sides was probably the right path forward.
Thank you.
There's a video going around.
Can you guys
There's a video going
explain-
around of Rafael Devers showing up to the stadium in a cab. Just curious if that was just a logistical thing, or if there was something to that.
That was just logistics to the timing, and obviously him needing to make sure that he got all of his stuff.
Sam, Craig, can you guys explain what you want your identity, culture, and environment to be that it wasn't with Rafael Devers?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about my experiences on championship caliber teams, and the unfortunately I keep going back to this, but what it keeps coming to is this idea that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That each individual is contributing and finding a way to help a team win. Whether that is in the batter's box, on the pitcher's mound, on the bases, on defense, in the clubhouse, on the bench. It's the willingness to step up and sacrifice at times of need, and essentially kind of do whatever is necessary to help the team win. And I think that's the identity, this relentless pursuit of winning that we're looking for. It's the identity that the World Series championship teams had in the past.
Which of those was he not fulfilling?
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense at this point to kind of be overly pointed or critical. I think we failed to reach that alignment. It was a really strong fit here for a really long time, and then became evident that it had started to diverge. And so, I think best to identify it, own it, and act decisively to fix it.
Sam, do you think in retrospect, the decision to sign Rafael, the one guy you signed to the long-term deal when others, obviously you didn't with Mookie or even Xander, like, does it feel like a mistake now? Is this admitting a mistake of the past?
Look, we thought we had alignment back when we made the contract a couple years ago when we did the deal, and ultimately we did not. So we were responsible for that. Like Brez said, we own it. We had certain expectations that went with that contract, and when we came to the conclusion that we did not have a full alignment, we moved on. So it's a totally fair question, and one we'll think a lot about, but not too much. We need to look forward and move on, and really excited about the guys coming back and where we're headed in 2025.
Question for Sam or Craig or both. You guys, Devers seemed pretty blindsided during spring training when you guys initially talked to him about moving off of third base. Do you think that if there had been more kind of conversations about that during the offseason before you guys signed Bregman, that it may have been an easier transition, smoother sailing, that it might not have gotten to this point? Because there was a lot of Rafi as our third baseman from various people in the organization all the way up until the Bregman signing, and he seemed pretty taken aback.
Yeah, Brez, you want to answer?
Sure. That's one of the questions that I ask myself every day, and there is no blueprint for how to navigate this. It does seem easy at this point, given where we are today, to say that we mishandled that, and I think that would be a totally fair criticism. I also, to be totally candid in my head, kind of play out this, okay, so we have this conversation with with Rafi, and he is resolute and adamant that third base is his position. And now we have a different type of problem on our hands, and so we try to operate with certainty and clarity, and sometimes baseball is so unpredictable that it's really difficult to do that until the very end. But I think to answer your question, I think about that all of the time. And if in a similar situation next time, my hope is that we are able to manage that in a way that it never reaches this point.
Could you guys? I would only add to that we did not know, obviously, until late night, February 8th, I think it was, that Alex Bregman was coming to Boston. And look, we have a responsibility, John, Tom, Mike, me, we have a responsibility to do everything we can to improve the club. And we felt we were doing that by bringing Alex Bregman to the Red Sox. And we have a responsibility, ironically, to every single player in that clubhouse to do everything in our power to improve the club. So it was something that we were committed to doing, and I do not regret that for 1 minute.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Could you guys outline for us the specific reaction from Alex Cora regarding this deal? And with the whole player alignment piece, is there some blame to be shouldered from Alex Cora for not being able to get this player aligned with the Red Sox vision?
Yeah, I can. I can walk through the reaction from Alex, and Alex and we're talking multiple times a day. So this was not something that came from nowhere. We had some conversations. I let him know of the progress, and his position is the one that we share, which is what we believe is best for the Boston Red Sox is the one that we should act on. And when he has insights to provide based on really having his hands on the pulse of the clubhouse and player reaction, he shares them, and that's really important information. But I think he also understood all of the dynamics here and what we were trying to build in the short term and the long term, and understood the direction. And ultimately, Alex is someone who puts the Red Sox organization first, and so he is behind this and supporting it. I say this with full confidence that I couldn't imagine a better manager who could handle the player reaction, the clubhouse reaction, the staff reaction to this type of trade, and to get the group focused on tonight's game and to go out there and give us the best chance of beating the Seattle Mariners tonight.
Craig, you've talked a lot tonight about alignment and culture, are 2 phrases that have come up a lot. Do those take on added significance this year because you are introducing so many rookies and young players onto the major league roster, and you want to make sure that those concepts become even more important when there are younger, more maybe impressionable guys on the roster?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think culture is always important, but I think it's magnified when you have young players who are coming to the big leagues and trying to acclimate themselves to this lifestyle, expectations, demands, and to understanding that they need to convert their emotions from being happy to be here to being willing to do anything that's needed to win as quickly as possible. And we're very deliberate about the environment that we're creating to support these guys, and making sure that the messaging is the right type of messaging, so that 3, 4, 5 years from now, when there's another wave of really exciting young talent that's infusing our major league team, they have set the standard and it will be easy to pass on.
Craig, real quick. Tonight's call. Thank you all for joining us.